Philosophically and morally, the evil of racism and the injustice of abortion really are, at the baseline, are the same sin, just outworked in different ways. They are two fruits of the exact same evil, and that evil is that we are devaluing the image of God that is placed on all human beings equally, regardless of color, race, creed, socioeconomic level, what nation you live in, what language you speak. To devalue the image of God by aborting any human being is a grave injustice that really just devalues the majesty and the glory of God himself. Every human life carries the majesty and glory of God himself. The gospel is good news, and there's cause to celebrate and rejoice in the goodness of God, but there are times, like what you're just describing, where it's appropriate for the people of God to lament. It's appropriate for the people of God to heed the words of James 4, be wretched and mourn and weep. Let your laughter be turned to mourning and your joy to gloom. Humble yourselves before the Lord, and he will exalt you. In addition to all those things that you just mentioned, I lost two very dear friends in 2020 unexpectedly, and spent a lot of time in the book of Lamentations. As a result, the book of Lamentations really is a book that just helps us to grieve and mourn all that's not right in the world. The civil rights movement really could have given birth at that time to the modern pro-life movement. Don't you agree, John?
Yeah, I agree, and I think they almost did, really, because again, Martin Luther King was very diligent about arguing on behalf of the African American and the end of segregation, for example, based on the fact that they are humans, not because they're blacks, because they're humans. But this is the group of people that's being oppressed as humans, and therefore we need to defend them and defend their rights. And of course, the next group, as the civil rights legislation began to pass and be adopted and agreed to across the country in the late 60s, it was right at that moment that we also began to strip human rights from another group of people, and that was the unborn.
I was thinking yesterday about the movie Jurassic Park. They were explaining that the dinosaurs can't breed because they're all female. And Jeff Goldblum plays a doctor, and he says cryptically, yeah, but life finds a way. Yeah. And even during COVID-19, it's like resistance is futile, as you said, John. You just can't stop this passionate movement of a spirit in these places where the gospel of life is going forward.
Yeah, Jesus predicts that there will be a lot of suffering and persecution and pushback, but he also says that the gates of hell will not be able to resist, meaning there's a lot of resistance, but it doesn't succeed, that the gospel overcomes all resistance, both in the human heart and as it begins to conquer systemic evils and to create much more of the glories of the kingdom.
He wrote, "How we respect life is the overriding issue. The question of life is the question of the 20th century. Race and poverty are dimensions of the life question, but discussions about abortion have brought the issue into focus in a much sharper way. How will we respect and understand the nature of life itself is the overriding moral issue, not of the black race, but of the human race." And he went on to argue that the language that is now being applied, abortion rather than murder, where they were basically removing the humanity of the unborn in order to justify their actions, he saw that as the very same strategy that they had been fighting against throughout the civil rights movement, in which degrading names are applied to strip people of a sense of their equal humanity.